Some people look at faith the same way I look at gardening. Now, I am not much of a gardener. In fact, I haven't really planted much of anything in my life. And when I have, it hasn't really worked out the way I wanted it to. This is how bad it is. You remember when you were like 5 years old and you come home from kindergarten or Sunday school with a styrofoam cup full of dirt and some seeds? All you had to do was set it in the kitchen window and let it grow, right? It's easy and simple. Who could mess that up? That was me. I guess I just don't have the patience, the skills, the green thumb, the whatever it is for gardening. I just can't do it right. So rather than get my hands dirty and my hopes up, I just don't ever plant a seed. You know, some people have heard that Jesus can do amazing things in your life. Heal a broken marriage, cure a disease, give hope for a very bad situation. And so they put a lot of faith in a certain circumstance, only to find out that it didn't turn out exactly the way they thought or how they expected, or perhaps nothing changed at all. And so they begin to wonder, well, maybe I didn't do something right. Maybe I didn't pray hard enough, believe big enough, or trust enough. I don't know. And so the next time something major happens in their life, they either try to work harder to make God do His thing, or rather than get their hopes up and their hands dirty, they don't even bother asking. I guess you could say they don't even plant a seed. But the truth is, when it comes to our faith in Jesus, and gardening for that matter, what we do or how hard we work has very little to do with the outcome we're so desperately hoping for. The Bible tells us of a time when the disciples were trying to heal a young boy who was possessed by an evil spirit. They'd seen Jesus do it like 1,000,000 times, so it was no problem, right? So they prayed and they prayed, they said all the right things, and when they stepped back, nothing. No change, no miracle. And so the father of the boy is like, forget this, and he runs and he finds Jesus himself. And right there on the spot, Jesus casts out the evil spirit. And the disciples are confused. They're like, we did everything we've seen you do. What went wrong? Why couldn't we make this miracle happen? And Jesus looks at him and he says, because your faith is so small. How small is it? Well, if it were even the size of a mustard seed, you would have been able to move mountains. Now, many people read those words and they think Jesus is saying that if only the disciples had believed stronger or prayed more, then somehow this situation would have gone according to script. Not quite. You see, the real issue for the disciples wasn't the size of their faith, but the substance of it. It wasn't that the disciples needed to trust more, but that they needed to trust differently. They needed to trust Jesus. You see, they had done what you and I so often do. We encounter some God-sized situation, something that only Jesus Himself could handle. But rather than put our heart and our hopes in His hands and as His power, we place them in our own. And so we think that God's ability to do His thing is dependent on how well we do ours. He says to His disciples, basically, if you have faith in me, it doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter what you do. Even if you have just a teeny, tiny, insignificant amount of faith in me, it is more than enough. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not saying that if you've been praying for Jesus to heal your broken marriage or to heal your father's illness, that you should just sit back and wait for some miracle to happen. Not at all. Just like with this flower, I've got to plant it and water and weed it for sure. But the essence of faith is knowing that the ultimate power to make this plant grow or to work that miracle in my life is in someone else's hands. At some point, you have to step back and say, Lord, this whole thing is up to you. And that's tough, but that's trust. That's faith. Think about it. Do you believe that Jesus has the power to do amazing things in your life? Do you believe that He has your best interest in mind at all times, in every circumstance? Do you believe that even if the situation you've been hoping and praying about doesn't turn out the way you want it to, that Jesus is still good, He's still God, and He still cares? Do you believe that even a tiny amount of faith in Him is more powerful than anything you've got to offer. Do you? Martin Luther talks about faith this way. He calls it a living, daring confidence in God. I've always liked that. Maybe He will answer my prayer. Maybe He won't. But I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that He can. And how do we know this? The cross. The cross is where Jesus points His disciples immediately following this encounter, and it's where He points us. The cross is where we learn just how faith-worthy Jesus is. The cross is where we see that He loves us beyond comparison, and that He's more powerful than any situation we'll ever encounter. No matter how meager or how small our faith is that we've got to offer, He can handle our situation. You know, I'm not much of a gardener, but that probably shouldn't stop me from planting some seeds. Most of it's out of my hands anyway. You know, who knows what God could grow? Whether you are planting a flower or praying for healing, may you have a living, daring confidence in God. May He do amazing things in your life. And may your faith in Christ and the cross far outweigh all others.